to Conversations with Chris, episode number 3. Very excited about this one. Today I have on the line with me Josh Kehn, maybe the hobby's best kept secret, or at least that's how I like to think of him when it comes to the collector groups that we both frequent. I've learned so much from Josh over the last period of time that I've known him. We actually met over eBay, over a Michael Jordan card that I had for sale, and it blossomed into a great hobby friendship. And Josh is a great, great collector with a super deep collection, and I can't wait to get into a little bit more about him and some of the cards that he collects and everything else. So first of all, I just want to say, Josh, thank you for coming on and welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, Chris, thanks for having me. Huge fan of the show since day one, so thank you for all you do for the hobby.
Absolutely, man. Okay, so the first thing I want to ask you about is your hobby origin story. So maybe, take us back to day one and up to present, kind of, how was your hobby experience? How did it start?
All right. Well, I started collecting in 1987 when I was 7 years old. I was collecting Garbage Pail Kids. And Mom and Dad sat me down, and my dad gave me a pack of Topps baseball and said, "No more Garbage Pail Kids. They were violent in depictions." So from there, I was playing baseball young, so it grew from there. And probably 87 to 91, I focused just mainly on baseball. And then transitioned to the NFL and NBA right around 91, and I've never taken a day off.
That's amazing. I didn't know about the Garbage Pail Kids as the origin to it. That's awesome. And then never taking a day off. See, I love it because that's such a different perspective than me, than a lot of others who took extended hiatuses. Like I'm talking about with me, I was on a hiatus for about 20 years until I came back in 2016. So you've seen the hobby through many different eras, and I'm going to ask you, because this prompted an interesting question for me. We see how the hobby is operating right now, and it's incredibly hot. Prices are unbelievably high. Have you ever seen a period like this, or even close to being like this, over the course of your hobby collecting career?
Maybe in 1989 through like 92-ish, I guess they call that the junk wax era. You could buy wax boxes for $20, and if you sold the cards single, rookies, basically prospects in baseball, you saw astronomical prices. I got out of that in 91 because I got burnt by Kevin Moss, 1990 Leaf, with my 3 weeks allowance of $16, and I don't think he hit another home run. So after that, that's when I got into NFL and basketball, because you knew that the rookies were actually playing versus prospecting. You still see that today with baseball. You see a lot of prospecting at high prices, but even flipping over to basketball, which is mainly what I collect, like Prism, you see base Prism rookies of Luka, for example, at $200 today. So I don't know that I've ever seen prices this high, but I just have the impression that there's a lot of collectors re-entering the market that may have started around the same time or maybe a couple years after me.
No, I think that's right. I think it's definitely right. A lot of people have come back in the last 5 years. At least I can testify to that anecdotally, because that's definitely my story and the story of a lot of my hobby friends right now. Now, you mentioned something interesting, like, you're right, like, raw Luka-based Prism cards can be had, for $200 on eBay. That's about the going rate. And if you got a PSA 10, the going rate is $650 on up right now. That card is super high population. Do you have any thoughts about, these extremely liquid, super high transaction volume cards that have very, very high, seemingly pretty stable prices? Like, how does this story end, in your opinion?
Well, I guess for me, I have a couple of Luka Raws. When I look at what people are buying, if I'm seeing Raws selling at, like I look today, at $200, yeah, that's kind of what a PSA 9 has been selling for. So when I see a $200 raw sale or high sales on these raws, it leads me to the impression that these are probably people investing in a raw card with the possibility to gem. Whereas on the collector side, a PSA 9, I know I'm getting a mint card, and I'm fine with that. So I would rather pay $200 for a slab mint copy than $200 for the roll of the dice for a gem. So I think with even a high pop report like somebody like Luka, you see Giannis Prisms from years past, and even Ben Simmons at one point. I think the price continues to rise on Luka as long as he, continues to be a, I would say, top 3 player. It's the other ones like, the Trays and the John Morants. There's potential that you're buying into there. So as long as the potential remains legit, the concern I have with players like that, for example, is how long does potential keep prices high before you have to start meeting expectations?
Ooh, I like the way you put that. I really like the way you put that. How long before you have to start meeting expectations? How long can potential carry a player's prices? And now, I know because I've seen like bits and pieces of your collection. You have like the key brands, key rookie cards of like everybody, and it's amazing. You got Luka Prism based cards. I'm sure you've got Trey, you've got Morans. There's like not a hot player that you don't have at least a few of their key base rookie cards of. What could you tell me a little bit about how your approach works? Like what's the thought that goes into that?
Well, first and foremost, when I'm buying cards, I'm looking at them, number one, the design takes into account and the popularity, because I think a Luka certified is more rare than a Prism, just using him as an example as a player. But people aren't chasing the certified as much as the Prism. So I've never mind picking up, 2 to 5 base cards of a rookie. I usually buy multiples because when you're buying in on a prospect, usually the price is lower than the actualized price. For the Luka example, you was buying in Luka Prisms for $20 or $30, which was strong at the time, but they went up 10 times in that value. So honestly, I bought a lot of those rookies to possibly trade because I like to buy in low and trade for Jordans, trade for LeBrons, and some of them I've just kept. I have multiple copies of like a Durant Topps Chrome, and it took 5 to 10 years for those, and now I think they're skyrocketing as well. So it's good trade bait for a Durant collector to get a card that I want.
Very, very interesting. And that, your longevity in the hobby assists you in that process as well, because like you said, you stock up on some Durant base rookie cards. Might take some time, might take a long time, but all of a sudden, dude, those cards are like super hot right now. Durant bases are, they've cooled off a little bit because it was, made clear that he's not coming back to the league this year, but those cards are definitely, looking over the last year, those are on a very upward trend right now. Now, I want to use that to transition to talking about the scene, the hobby scene in your neck of the woods, which is Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska. So, where are you picking up these cards at? Do you got a local shop that you go to? Tell me a little bit about what the scene is like in your area.
Yeah, when I started out collecting, there was probably 9 card shops in Lincoln, Nebraska, where I'm originally from. And now all through the years, the last one is Wes's baseball cards. I've known Wes since I was 9 years old, ripping 89 score football packs from him as a kid. Very knowledgeable of the hobby. People in the state don't really have a lot of card shop options, so anything that appears in Nebraska that eventually gets sold in person usually runs through Wes. So he's had a wide selection of singles, probably the largest wax offering I've ever seen in a card shop, period. 90s wax from Jordan's, the big Jordan inserts all the way through LeBron's rookie years, and now including modern Prism from first year to current. So through Wes, I've been able to locate a lot of cards, meet a lot of people. And then I started purchasing on eBay in 1999. That's when I started buying on eBay. So, 20 years of not really taking any time off. I've probably bought 60-70% of my PC through eBay. Card shows. I traveled a lot and did card shows, and I've lived in a couple of different states too.
So his Wes and Wes's card shop, have they been around like uninterrupted from back when you started collecting until now?
Yeah, he worked at another card shop for maybe the first 3 or 4 years, and then he started his own card shop. I think he's been in business for 27 straight years, same location. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, and through the years, what you see happening is he may have a nice LeBron raw rookie card sitting there, and Lincoln, Nebraska is not huge. I mean, there are some collectors, but some cards are just hidden gems that'll sit there for a while. And even some of the older wax, I mean, he's got, Bowman Chrome cases from when Tom Brady was a rookie that are still sealed. You never even see a sealed case of that, and I know he has that. And, things like Mike Trout rookie year, you tops jumbos and regular boxes, and it's just a whole wall of wax. It's a pretty big, nice card shop. So.
Oh, when Christina hears this, she is going to want to visit this shop badly.
I'll have to send you a picture.
Yeah, I think that just sealed the deal. Okay, so and what about local shows? You mentioned you do some traveling to card shows. What are there local shows in the Omaha Lincoln area? What are those like? Or if not, where do you usually go when you're hitting up shows?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 card shops in Omaha that I've gotten to know them since I moved here about 4 years ago, and they put on a card show in Omaha once a month. And there's also another guy in Lincoln that I know that has 1 card show a month in Lincoln. When I was a lot younger and traveled for like baseball and basketball teams I was on, my dad took me to card shows on the weekends, when I was in a different city. And as a kid, I've really bought most of my collection raw. I didn't start buying graded cards until about maybe 3 months before I met you. So 2 years ago, when I started buying graded cards, everything I had was raw.
Wow. What made you decide to start picking up graded?
I always wanted graded 9, because when I was a kid, if you had a card, and people would always ask you around here, is it in mint condition? And I know my cards are mint because I feel like I have a pretty good eye. But it came to a realization that when you look at sales, and I was just looking at sales on eBay, it's kind of what inspired me. I'm like, these graded cards go for so much more than the card I have, and I think mine's in just as good a shape. And so I wanted them to be protected and slabbed, and now I'm hooked. Now I really only buy graded cards unless they're new, modern product, because I trust they're packed fresh.
For sure. And obviously you've picked up so many great raw cards over the years. I've seen you, slowly starting to get those graded as well, but you still have such a monster stash that you're still working through grading. And so this provides a nice segue to start talking about your collection, because I know about a lot of the stuff you got, and I know, Michael Jordan is a big, big part of your collection. And I know, like you said, you are a 9, a mint grade aficionado. So tell us a little bit about your Jordan collection, some of your favorite pieces, some of the best, the theory behind like the condition that you like them all to be in, and, some of the stuff you got raw too.
Okay. Started, I guess, probably Jordan's Die Hard in 95. So, 95 through 99 until he retired. I pretty much had most of those raw inserts except for for the most part, the Grail, some of the very low number ones. I just didn't ever have exposure during the late 90s until 99 to even get them, because there was no eBay for me. I would say 80% of what I buy today is Jordans, usually in a BGS 9. I'll buy the occasional 9.5, but I just like mint slabs. Some of the nicest Jordan cards I have may not be the most valuable. I'm a fan of linchpins, 96, 97 Thrill Seekers. Probably design-wise, my 2 favorite looking Jordans. I have probably most of the what I would call mid-range, which is it's hard for me to put a value range on it because they're worth more to me, I guess, than what the market is. But I'm more of a mid-range Jordan guy, $200 to $2,000 cards. It's kind of my sweet spot.
For sure.
My nice cards, I never look at it. It's locked away. It was a while back in, I think it was 98. I was 17 years old. I worked full-time construction in the summers, so my dad said I would appreciate going to college instead of working that job for my uncle because it was miserable. I went to a card shop, and I watched the guy sit down and open up 4 boxes of 97, 98 Metal Universe, and he hit a Michael Jordan PMG Red. At the time, I didn't know anything about the card. I had never seen it. It was just the card shop owner told me that there really wasn't numbered cards yet, and this was one of the first, and I liked the red. I just thought it matched the Bulls. And I made the guy told me it was worth, $500 at the time, and told me he wouldn't take less than $650 cash right then and there. I'm 17. I drove over to the bank 3 blocks away, took the money out, and I blew 2 weeks of my pay on the card, raw, pack fold, and was grounded for it, and parents never really understood it. And, about they told me I had to grade it, and I didn't really understand why, because it wasn't meant to me. It had a little white chipping on the sides, but it came back an 8.5, and it's kind of my pure luck story, but I wouldn't have bought it if it was anybody else. It just happened to be that the color red and a Michael Jordan card always meshed well with me, I guess. Like a Behind the Glass is another one of my top 10 Jordans by design. I just like the color scheme with Jordan.
Man, I love that story. love that story. And obviously you still have locked away that BGS 8.5 Jordan PMG Red. You might that might be okay, so this is in 98. So that might be perhaps, or it has to be up there as one of the longest tenures that card has ever spent with one owner, because you basically had it from day one and it never left your PC.
Yeah, I mean, I bought it within 45 minutes to an hour of when it was pulled from the pack. It never even left the store. pretty lucky.
Oh, that's awesome. And then you somehow, I mean, because it takes some gumption to, if the book value was 500 according to Beckett at that time, or however the 500 was determined, this guy, he wants 650 on the spot. That takes some gumption to go ahead and still say, man, this card speaks to me. I just want to buy it. And you did it. And, you and I have a lot of things in common. One of the things we definitely have in common is we're not afraid to overpay for something from time to time if we really, really need the card. So it looks like that overpay worked out all right for you in the long run.
And to speak to overpaying, I see a lot of people out there offering lower than what somebody's asking for a card. Next thing you know, it says sold via PM. And I've always been that person that if it's a card I want of a player that I collect, in particular the condition I like, I will overpay for the card because I'll always have the card. I've never been disappointed by overpaying for a nice Michael Jordan yet.
Amen to that. And can you tell me a little bit about, if you want to, your MJ rookie stash? Because I know about some of those fleers you got.
Well, I mean, even younger, there wasn't a whole lot of reprints back in, I would say, 98, 99, and the reprints then were awful. And I've always been able to spot a reprint Jordan rookie. So I started buying Jordan rookies raw at age 11, and they were like 100 to 150 at a card show. And so I would literally save up my whole weekly allowance and then dip into my future allowances to be mowing the lawn for free to buy Jordan rookies. So started in eBay in 1999. They were some of my first purchases were just raw Jordan rookies. Looking back, anywhere from $242 to $375 raw. Had a couple of them graded that were not questionable to me. They just weren't in that great a shape. Both of those came back in 8.5, and I still have 14 raw rookies to grade, and the condition was a lot better on these. Just being, and you know how ultra picky and selective I am on condition, I feel like 4 of them have a great shot at a gem, and I'm just terrified to throw them in the mail, so it'll be a future BGS visit for me to get them graded in person because I've always wanted to go to BGS. Wow.
14 that you have picked up over the years that is so much fun. I love hearing about that. And yeah, so do you have plans to take that trip to visit soon, BGS, or when's that going to be? Because man, you've got so much experience and the uninterrupted decades in the hobby that you probably don't feel any pressure like, oh, I have to go grade these like right now. You've had them for so many years, they're not going anywhere. But me, sometimes when I got a card raw that I know needs to be graded, I start getting a little bit antsy, and I'm like, man, I need to grade this card. So, like, have you felt that at all, or are you just, you'll grade them when you get a chance?
Well, I thought about grading the rookies by making a trip down there. Nothing's planned, but I rarely sell cards. I mean, I do trade. I see the Jordan rookies, got exceptionally hot there leading up to the last dance and carried over after for a little while there. I just don't have any desire to sell them. I know that when I was looking through these in person, I remember as a kid, there was cards I passed on that I just didn't think were in mint shape. Back then you could get Michael Jordan rookie cards reasonably priced before grading, which caused the prices to soar. I don't have any desire to sell them. Even trading one or two, as weird as it sounds, I don't know that I can do because I've had them for so long, and you can always pick up a Jordan rookie, but I can't pick up that Jordan rookie that I got from 20 plus years ago.
Very true. And when you're examining cards in raw condition, are there any tips you can share that you don't mind sharing about, like, what do you look for? How do you inspect a card's condition, and how do you know when you think you got one that's going to grade well?
I've always started off with centering. I just think centering is the first thing for my eye that catches appeal. So if a card is centered, just looking through a display case, I'm interested. The second thing I look at is the corners, not just on the front, but on the back. You'll see a lot of cards with nice front surfaces, but maybe not so much the back. That's important for me because I'm a BGS grader, and I just feel that they grade the backs more comparable to the fronts than, say, a PSA, for example. Surface is another thing. I do not like creases or anything like that. I think I've been pretty good through the years to know what's a factory printed defect versus a dent in the card, or somebody that put the card in a top loader without a sleeve, and you see the scratches that are not maybe Prism produced print lines that you'll see in today's modern cards. So I would say centering, corners, and then surface, and edges isn't something I really paid much attention to until I started grading cards. But I think I've just gotten lucky through the years with edges, knowing that if a card has 3 out of the 4, quote, VGS subs, the card would technically be mint.
Excellent. That's excellent. Very good stuff there. So let me ask you a little bit, because you and I both frequent some of the same collector groups on Facebook dedicated to Michael Jordan cards. And what's your experience been like frequenting the Michael Jordan Facebook card groups? We've seen them grow, and they keep growing every month. Like, especially during the last dance, they've just exploded. What's your experience like with the Michael Jordan Facebook groups? Would you recommend Jordan collectors to join them? How would you advise them to navigate those groups? Have you made any great, hobby connections through them? Tell me a little bit about the online Michael Jordan collecting community.
Yeah, I mean, I'm part of 2 what I would call the larger Jordan Facebook groups that I'm aware of. I would tell you that no matter how long you've been collecting, if you are a Jordan collector or just a fan of even looking at nice Jordan cards, it's a must join. I started contributing by just commenting on posts, looking at people for sale, with cards for sale. You introduced me to both pages. So, I mean, even all those years of experience, I was not part of social media collecting until about 2.5 years ago. I would say that every single person I've interacted with and done deals with has been more than a positive experience. Since then, probably accumulated a good 30 Jordan collecting buddies, as I like to say. The only thing that it's been unpleasant is maybe the pocketbook, because I bought a lot of my graded cards on Facebook, and like I said, I really wasn't afraid to overpay, and I don't think there's anything like a Jordan mail day. So if I had it my way, I would get that 6 days a week.
Oh, I hear you, man. Well, we're still working on getting you on Instagram. That's the next step. We need to get you on Instagram, but we go one step at a time. And like you said, the pocketbook needs a break every once in a while. So maybe
Yeah.
maybe Facebook is enough.
Well, and I've slowed down a little bit just because I've accumulated so many doubles through the years, and some of them being low pops or just nice inserts. I'm to the point now where I'm willing to trade either for other Jordans I don't have, or even nice LeBron. So kind of widening the variety on just solely Jordan. But I mean, I might offer some of the doubles for sale and try to go after some of the bigger ones that have eluded me for all these years.
You mentioned doubles. I should have asked you about this earlier, but now I have to ask you about it for sure. Tell me about the big men on court. I know you have like a stash of Jordan BMOCs. Tell me a little bit about that that card and what it means to your collection and how many you have.
I just being a hip hop music fan in the 90s, 93 to I guess you can call it present. When I first saw the big men on court Jordan card, it just reminded me of graffiti in a big city. Maybe like some of the rap CDs that came out when I was younger, and the color scheme, the die cut, Jordan's pose on the front instantly became one of my all-time favorite Jordans. And every time I went to a card show and I saw one, which they were rare, I mean, you didn't see them around too much, but I would say from 96 to 1999, I accumulated, I think it was 7 raw copies. I sold one and just never let myself live that down. And the other ones I had graded, and 4 of them came back 9s. One of them came back an 8.5. Another one I got at National was an RCR 8.5, but when I sent it to BGS, it was a true mint 9. So I still have 4 or 5 BGS 9s, and then you got me hooked on the Z-Peat.
Well, the Z-Peat is so. I mean, the base version is extremely rare. The Z-Peat is like impossibly rare. I think the pack odds are roughly 1 in 11,000 to hit the Jordan Z-Peat. So, yeah, love that card. Very cool. You got like hordes of some others too, like Competitive Advantage. I think at one time you had at least half a dozen of those. What you got any? I'm sure you got like a bunch of Behind the Glass. You got any other? What's some other high quantity MJs you got?
Third year Fleer base. I believe that's 88, 89. Just my favorite early Fleer Jordan card outside of a rookie, of course. And love the card, so I continually buy nice BGS 9 copies, and I probably have 6 or 7 sets that I built when I was younger. And I don't, the Jordans are nice, but I've never graded them. They're just part of the set. So I probably have 20 or 30 copies of that. Competitive Advantage, I think I've got 4 or 5 of those BGS graded still. Meltdown was another one, just because I remember pulling one out of a pack, and it was a $15 card, and it's just, I love the design and the foil surface. I'm trying to think about what other ones that I have multiples of. Yeah, like you mentioned, Behind the Glass, and I have several of those, and PSA 10 and then 9.5 BGS, just because I think it's condition sensitive and extremely undervalued. And, outside of that, a lot of refractors that I bought, and through the years, some of them I haven't even graded yet. I believe I have a 96, 97 chrome, but it's pack pulled and probably 85-15 centering left to right, so that hurts. But outside of that, it's, there's no greening, so I guess eye appeal is probably my number one thing with doubles, and I've never complained about having too many big men on courts. So.
Oh, I know it. Now, what about the Fleer retros? I know you got some of the coolest Jordans from those sets, and those sets are becoming popular, especially as like some of the 90s stuff starts to get just too expensive. Tell me a little bit about some of the Fleer retro Jordans you got. Well,
Fleer retros, when they came out, were real hot. People loved them, and then after about a year, because they made 3 years of them, year 2 came out, and the popularity dropped off. You could pick up all of these remakes of 90s inserts. The design wasn't identical, but it was somewhat similar, and it was North Carolina jersey versus Bulls. I started buying every numbered one I can find. I bought a couple of the PMG Reds raw, and I've graded all my retros since then. They grade well compared to the 90s, I believe. They grade a little bit better, and I just like having the pairing. I just think when you look at the Court Masters 97, 98, and you have right next to it the North Carolina version from the retro, I just think it pops. I like to have whatever I have of the 90s Jordan, I want to have the retro. So I'm pretty close to the retro set.
Amazing. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about your LeBron collection. You opened my eyes, definitely, to the LeBron market and to cards and to sets that weren't on my radar. And you put them on my radar. And one of the cards that like you were spot on about, you were the first person I ever even heard talk about this card in like super glowing, highly optimistic terms, was the 2012 LeBron Prism Silver. And I know you're sitting on a few of those over there. Tell me, some of the stuff you got in the LeBron PC, and then I want to ask you a little bit about where you think the LeBron market is going.
Okay. Yeah, I started collecting LeBron's his rookie year. And I bought a lot of Topps Chrome and Topps, not only just packs and boxes, but I bought every LeBron Topps Chrome single that I could find centered, which was not an easy task back then because I think a majority of the LeBron Chromes are off-centered. I love chrome refractors, so I picked up all the chrome-based refractors. I didn't get into the blacks or gold. Huge regret. I should have, because those are the ones that are the most in demand. But I just like the base refractors to match with the base cards. When Prism came out, I unfortunately spent a ton of money on football. Prism in 2012 was my main focus at that time, was football, and I loved the cards. They reminded me of Topps Chrome, and I thought these are going to be huge. The football didn't catch on until maybe the last year, because the first-year Prism basketball, especially the silvers, not to mention the golds, are huge now. When I first started talking to you about it, the reason that it set me off with buying 2012 silver LeBrons is usually the biggest superstar, the living GOAT, as they say, that's playing, usually they surpass the rookie card in value in most cases down the road, maybe with the exception of like the 96 Chrome Refractor Kobe, but it's still worth more than the Jordan, but, who knows in time. The Prism basketball that year, when I bought 2 hobby boxes, I pulled 2 silvers out of each box. What made me think about it was buying 17, 18 Prism hanger packs at Walmart for $10, and you would get 2 to 3 silvers per $10 hanger pack. And that's when the light kicked on that these were only 2 per hobby. There wasn't any retail made, there was retail made that year, but they only had the greens, not the silvers. And I thought, I think these are short printed and extremely undervalued. So I started buying a couple raw Prism LeBrons and graded 2 as 9s, still have a raw. And then I bought a BGS 9 on eBay 2 years ago, I think, because somebody listed it, and it was a fair price at the time. So a lot of the LeBrons I have today are optic and Prism colors, variations. Didn't really get a whole lot of base. I just put together one set of each, but I bought a lot of the colored, solid colored LeBron parallels, and once they started taking off, those were some of the first cards I got graded, and since then I've kind of been interested in, LeBron, basically buying all LeBron and Prism and optic cards just because I like the designs.
The LeBron market has gone nuts this year, absolutely nuts. And it kind of started a little bit last year, but like really at the beginning of this year, is 2018, Optic Hollow, Lakers uni card blew up. All of his cards started blowing up. Good luck trying to get like a 2019 or a 2018 Prism Gold LeBron or an Optic Gold. It doesn't matter. Select Gold. It doesn't matter if it's an insert. It doesn't matter if it's concourse, if it's premier level, if it's courtside. Those cards are thousands and thousands of dollars, at a minimum, and they're only going up. What are your thoughts on the LeBron market right now, and where do you see it headed, short term? Because my favorite to win the finals this year, and I don't know much, but my favorite to win is the Lakers. I think it can happen. And then I think LeBron still has some good years left where he's going to be adding to his legacy. So where do you see the LeBron market going here near term and longer term?
Well, I would probably be wrong on the assessment, because each time I think, wow, these LeBron prices can't get any higher, I'm fooled 2 days later, and it does. So that's what I see with LeBron. Part of me, I guess a small part of me thinks that there's some speculation built in there that, if this man wins a title with the Lakers, 3 titles with 3 teams, he's going to be cemented as an undisputed top 5 player all time. I think people are chasing the low number, like you mentioned, Prism and optics. So I just think that, those cards are extremely popular by design and product. Product pushes those more than, say, a 1 of 1 of a certified, for example, or out of 10 out of certified. I think the prices for LeBron will continue to go up. I've even noticed the raw value of cards is getting closer to 9s in some aspects when I do my analysis on eBay of what cards are doing. And I think that's people grading to get those gems, whether it's PSA or BGS, and those prices continue to soar. I just think premium grade copies of nice LeBrons will continue to appreciate in value. And I just think some of the rookies were overlooked through the years and are starting to kind of gain that value that was deserved maybe, say, 6-7 years ago.
Well said. Now you're in a unique position because there's many guys who collect only Jordan or focus on Jordan. There's many guys who collect only LeBron. There's a few who cross over and collect both. You're somebody who collects both. And so that gives you a unique perspective. And what do you think about, there's rumblings in the hobby that LeBron is challenging, MJ's mantle as sort of the hobby GOAT. And, some people have different opinions on that or whatever, but what do you think about long term, in the hobby? Has LeBron matched Jordan's status in the hobby? And long term, will he and Jordan sort of, be peers and be, co-kings of the hobby, so to speak?
It's a good question. I talk about it often with collectors who will hear me speak. It'll be very tough for me to ever put LeBron in the same category as MJ. I watched both of them play during their primes of their career, and for me personally, MJ will probably never be matched. It was just a perfect storm with him, winning 3 titles, leaving for baseball, coming back, winning 3 titles, leaving at the peak of his career, only to come back years later for the Wizards at age 40 and still average 25 points a game. I don't think that will ever happen again. With LeBron, I think it's different. I think you have a different generation that maybe never had the chance to sit down and watch MJ live in his prime. And so they see the best player overall in the game. That's my opinion with LeBron. In history, I think he'll be looked at like Magic as maybe one of the top 2 best overall players. But I think Jordan was the best basketball player that I've ever seen. Would probably be my answer.
Very interesting. Very interesting there on that. And we'll see. The story's still being written. The story is definitely still being written. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about your football collection. Peyton Manning, Barry Sanders, Deshaun Watson. Your football collection is probably as deep as your basketball collection is. Is that, I don't know if that's a fair assessment, but, tell us a little bit about your football collection, who you collect, some of your favorite cards.
Yeah, I would say Peyton Manning and Barry Sanders would be the top 2 that I collect for his entire career. Andre Johnson from the Texans was my number 3 guy. Just love Andre Johnson. And lately it's been Deshaun Watson. Just since his days at Clemson came out, I couldn't wait to see him in a pro uniform. I think Deshaun Watson's going to be a phenomenal football player. I didn't see Pat Mahomes coming, but I did buy a lot of Pat Mahomes, I guess, when that first year he was on the bench because they were cheap. And I thought, always good to roll the dice on a quarterback. As far as Peyton Manning, I'd say my favorite card is I have a 98 Contenders auto. I believe there was only 300 made, though it's not serial numbered. You don't see a lot of them with a full bold auto. Mine's a BGS 9 with a 10 auto that I picked up, mainly because you've seen players like Tom Brady, though he's considered the GOAT. His Contenders was rising in value so much, and when I looked at the Manning, which was made in far less quantity, I couldn't understand why at that time a Manning was worth $2,000 and a Tom Brady was worth $15,000. I didn't think there was much of a difference, and so I bought Manning. I bought SP Authentics, and when I started to see Topps Chrome refractors doing well in basketball, I knew it was a matter of time before it spilled over into football rookies, and so I bought a bunch of Topps Chrome refractor Peyton Manning rookies, which I think over the last couple of months they started to take off. It's really tough to let any of them go, I guess, because I was such a big Manning fan.
What about Barry Sanders?
Well, Barry Sanders was my first football card that I really remember as a kid. I bought 89 Score football. Just thought it was a colorful set. It was the first time in my collecting of football where the actual rookies came out during their rookie year. A lot of like 82 Topps, for example, the Lawrence Taylor rookie, but he played in 81. So for years, Topps was always releasing the NFL rookies the year after because they had photos in their rookie uniform. 89 Score pretty much changed the game for me with football, and I was buying rookies that had just come out. So I don't know, I probably accumulated 40, 50 Barry Sanders Score rookies over the years. I've never graded one of them. I have one gem, a quad gem, that just because it was my favorite football card as a kid. But a lot of the Barry Sanders inserts over the last 2 to 3 years, when the Jordans started to take off, I looked back and said, well, Barry Sanders has a premium players. He has a starring role. And I started to pick up as many raw copies of those inserts just because I thought Griffey and Barry Sanders would take off, because I thought those were the three best players in each sport in the 90s.
Man, you are an encyclopedia of card knowledge. This is so interesting to listen to. Okay, so and Deshaun Watson. Tell me a little bit about the camo Prism Parallel and why you like that card so much for quarterbacks, and tell me a little bit about your Watson collection.
Yeah, I fell in love with Prism Camo in 2016, buying packs and wax boxes. They were hard to pull. They were out of 25. The previous years, they were just kind of throw-in refractor subsets. They weren't numbered. I just always liked the camo design, so I started with Wentz and Dak and Goff back in 2016. And in 17, the next year, I opened a lot more Prism boxes before the big boom, and the prices were reasonable. I think I had 2 Pat Mahomes that were raw, the camos out of 25, and I was luckily able to acquire 6 Deshaun Watsons, because at that point in time, I started to realize that the best time to buy a card is immediately upon release. Yes, you're going to pay a little higher prices out of the gate. Cards products usually subside a little bit after that. But I also knew that this is the only time I'm going to be able to buy Deshaun Watson before, if my prediction came true, he'd be a star. And I just started buying up all the copies because I thought it would be cool to have all 25, and it never came to fruition. After 6 of them, you never saw any of them listed anymore. And I think some guy in Nebraska was buying them all.
I hope you get all 25, man. But 6 is, that's quite an accomplishment in and of itself. Now, you mentioned something, you were opening more wax when, prices were a little bit more reasonable. Do you still find yourself opening wax as much today?
Well, today I'm not really able to. I like Optic and Prism when it comes to basketball, for example, and when I see the prices of a wax box, not only, priced accurately at a local card shop, and I see the prices continue to go up through eBay, I start to tell myself I only have, so much as far as the budget. I am better off pursuing the single cards that I really want to make sure I get all of that out of that product that I can. And I just don't know if I can justify an $800, for example, Prism hobby box this year. It may be more now, to maybe, if I'm lucky, hit a Zion base. And I just can't do that. So now I'm forced to kind of buy the singles as they come out of players that I think will do well, and some of the lower numbered parallels while I have a shot. But I didn't open any 1920 wax. I think I opened 2 jumbo packs of Prism basketball, and that was it. So it was a sad year for me as far as wax, because that's something I think is an important part of the hobby for me.
What about breaks? Do you ever find yourself tempted to want to jump into a break?
No, I'm hooked on watching them because I can stare at cards and talk cards 24/7. But I have never joined a break. To me, it feels like a gambling aspect that a lot of people do really well in, similar to maybe a Raz. I'm not really a gambler. I'm more of a sure thing. Let me just pay for the card that I want, rather than possibly risking money for nothing. And so I don't do breaks, and I don't do Razes, for example.
Makes sense. I've never bought into a break or a Raz either, for probably similar reasons. So, okay. This has been an incredible talk. I always end these conversations with the same 2 questions. I always get really interesting answers, And I always preface it by saying these are just opinions, and they're just for fun. So, people get really riled up over stuff like this sometimes, but it's just for fun. So the questions are, of course, first, which player or card is currently undervalued?
Oh, wow. Okay. Currently undervalued. I'll go with the set because I think Prism's probably the most popular set in basketball for the masses, not counting like National Treasures or some of the boxes that the common collector like myself cannot sling. When I look at Prism cards and I look at like the low number Lucas, for example, I think some of those are undervalued just because I'm looking at a guy for the next 15 years who's probably going to be a dominant player in the NBA. And maybe, with the exception of Dirk, kind of the first of his kind with the international appeal, who I think will live in the spotlight longer than, say, Yao Ming. So I would say Luka would be one. I mean, I wish I had gotten on the train a year ago. I'm a little late to join now, but at the same time, there's good cards to be had at reasonable, fair prices that in some cases I think is too low.
Interesting choice. And, okay, the flip side of the coin is which player or card do you think is currently overvalued?
Well, in comparison, when I look at that draft class, oddly enough, both players come out of it. Trae Young, I guess, is part of back to what I was saying about potential and how long can it be there before you realize that, the expectations have been met. I just see a great scorer playing on a bad team. I think NBA teams, with the way that the rules are structured, the player stays with the same team for a long time out of the gate before they're able to move on. Maybe like an Anthony Davis, the team has control. I just don't see people paying astronomical prices for a guy that plays in Atlanta, doesn't have the exposure, and although scores 30 points a game, I just don't see them winning. And I think when Giannis was on the team for a counterpart, when Giannis started winning, the value started to increase, and you had more people buying into Giannis because not only was there potential in him, but there was potential with the team.
Well said. Very interesting points. Well, man, thank you very much for joining and for enlightening us on all different aspects of the hobby. I take notes, and I've got 3 pages of notes from what you've been saying of just things I've been jotting down and little things that maybe I forgot to ask you about during the course of the call that I'll be bothering you about on Facebook. But one thing, there might be some collectors who want to get in touch with you maybe after hearing this. Maybe they're interested in doing a deal or a trade, or maybe they've got some cards you might be interested in, and you're not on Instagram. And I wish you were. One day we will get you on Instagram. But until then, is there a way people can contact you, or should they just wait for you to post stuff on eBay, or how is there a way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, Joshua Kehn, Kehn on Facebook. I welcome any message chatting about sports cards. I'm sure you can attest. I would give the audience a warning. I love to talk cards, so easy to work with. Love to meet new collectors, whether it's buying, selling, or just chatting. So, yeah, I would love to receive messages and chat with people.
There you go. Okay. Josh, thanks a lot for joining us. This has been episode 3 of Conversation with Chris. We'll see you guys next week.